So Corey Taylor decided that he was going to make some comments. Well, he didn't decide. He was being interviewed, but you get what I'm saying. There were some comments that were made within the past 24 hours that involved both the millennials of metal, and by that, of course, we're talking about the generation, as well as pop music. And a quick little reaction to those statements really are kind of in order, considering this is something that we speak about a little bit on this channel in both facets, in both ways, shapes, and forms. Firstly, I want to talk about pop music, his comments on it a bit briefly. And I feel that with this, one thing can really be your guide as far as how I feel about a lot of this stuff is 5 Reasons Today's Pop Music Sucks. It's a video that was done a couple of years ago that really explained a couple of the main problems that are within the pop industry today. And whenever you listen to some of Corey's comments in this regard, you start to realize that this is not something that's held just by one man. Corey said that he was embarrassed to be a part of the music business right now, where he goes out and he bleeds and dies for his craft on a nightly basis, whenever a lot of artists are able just to let everything go through a computer and they are doing extremely well, and that's kind of what everybody is going after. That is sort of the status quo right now for as far as music is concerned. And to be perfectly fair, I lament with Corey on this because he is kind of right about that. But the one thing that I will say to Corey, or the one thing that I will say in rebuttal to that, is that you're in a style of music where that shouldn't be your primary concern. If you're thinking within the metal genre that you're going to be able to keep pace with pop music today and hip-hop, and really something that right now is kind of the cultural epicenter, musically speaking, of America especially, then you're a little bit delusional. You're a little bit crazy in that regard. But I completely and totally get the feeling that whenever you hear a lot of traditional pop albums, it sounds a lot like, as he described it, it's about as worthwhile as listening to a piece of wood. It is what it is. One thing that I will also state on this regard is the fact that I feel that pop music has also been affected very much by what America, especially American pop music, obviously, has been concocted by a lot of where that drive has come from, and it's become one that has become synonymous also with reality TV and also with tabloid media. It's something where now it is all just as much about remaining socially relevant, similar to what some people may say that folks such as Kerry King or Corey Taylor or even Kevin Lyman have been doing by making comments that are buzzworthy or that are topics that jump out at you. Some people would claim that this was said, for example, as a way just to keep his name in the media, even though he was merely just doing an interview for a website, and not to mention also for a Wikipedia Fact or Fiction, if you're unfamiliar with that series, as well as promoting a little bit of his new book. So there's very much a lot of dictation there among trying to remain socially relevant as well, which has actually started to become a little bit more important than the music itself, even though the music is said to be at the forefront and the most important facet of the career. In reality, what it seems to be is that itself is a very plastic sentiment by a lot of these individuals, where they're very happy to be where they're at and they're very happy to perform and things like that, but if they were to fall into a time frame of a lacking of social relevance or a lacking of social importance, you really kind of get the inkling these days that you would all of a sudden in a couple of years see, I guess, the new version of Where Are They Now, where they're trying to redesign themselves after a mental breakdown, Mariah Carey style or something like that. It's something where even a breakdown of that regard could potentially be manufactured. It's now become an industry where you cannot always trust what you see, as we just saw with Drake and Meek Mills, with their whole beef and everything like that over something as simple as a ghostwriter. And I'm going to be honest with you, in pop music and even in hip-hop music, ghostwriting has been something that's been around since the start. In fact, in the early 50s and 60s, ghostwriting was something that happened quite often. Either that, or you saw a lot of bands that were covering other groups or artists' material, and it was something that was completely legal and something that was completely allowed. With the way in which that legality has changed, it now becomes more difficult, so having ghostwriters produce original material is probably an easier way for these artists to maintain a little bit of that relevance by ensuring that they have albums out during a certain period of time, as opposed to having to sit and wait for them to write for 3 years in order to have enough for a 70-minute long hip-hop or pop album where, nobody can come up with half of these ideas by themselves, especially with the way that the industry is today. There's no real genius out there. Even the great Justin Timberlake, who I love the pieces, is still one that has just a plethora of help, and the same is actually true. Replicating the success of somebody like Adele is just almost impossible, mainly because that was success that was not expected. It was something that actually came from it being a very honest and a very raw album that connected with a lot of people. And whenever you try to force feed that, it doesn't always work. Now, whenever it comes to the metal millennials, this is something where we have talked about this as well. We've talked about the fact that you should always go out there and explore new music and explore different breeds, different types, different styles of heavy metal. Corey feels as though the metal millennials have no sense of respect, or at least a lot of them have no sense of respect, or don't really care too much to discover very much about heavy metal's past. He's citing that whenever he was growing up and listening to the music, he wanted to sort of know not only the bands that he was checking out, but sort of where they came from, what their influences were, and where in the past everything sort of belongs. Kind of becoming a little bit of a heavy metal historian while also developing a large fandom toward the genre. And that's actually something that I can definitely relate to and sort of replicate to, considering that's exactly what happened with me. It's something where I originally got into Metallica, which is definitely a band that a lot of people get into whenever they first discover metal. But based around an album such as Garage Incorporated, or based around some of the different other things that they've done, based around the Big Four, or based around this or that, where former and current members at that time were from, it actually caused for a bit of an explosion of trying to discover more and more and more. And really, with one thing, it should always lead to another. I actually have to agree with Corey on this, but at the same time, I also have to somewhat disagree. And the reason for this is because I believe that the metal millennials that have very little regard for the history of the genre are mainly those who are on the fringe line, who are mainly those that perhaps listen to Slipknot, but at the same time, it's not really their preferred style of music. It's kind of the heaviest that they go. They go as far as that safety zone, and then they don't go any further. And I feel that this is also something that's true of those who get all the tattoos and become, metal cats or metal kittens, whether it be guy or gal, listen to Suicide Silence, and then turn around and listen to Drake, and they call it listening to everything, which is absolutely okay, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's something where they're very much invested in the now, as opposed to really kind of looking back and looking at all of the different decades of music that exist within our collective stream of human emotion. And it is a problem. It is something that is definitely a problem. But for those who dive headlong into heavy metal, or who just dive headlong into music by itself, I feel that this isn't a problem. But what I will say in Corey's defense is that I feel that there are fewer and fewer individuals that actually do that. Even though we have all of this music that's kind of at our disposal and at our fingertips, it's still something where it seems that not very much in the way of exploration really occurs unless it's something that's heard on a television show. Either that or something that is perhaps recommended by a friend, and even then it's a 50-50 gasp of whether or not they actually do it. That's the reason why on a channel such as this one, we talk about bands from just about any time in history. It's the reason why I try to do 10 awesome songs and try my best to not keep it from 2000 onward. I try to include some stuff from a little bit further back, but I will say this: whenever I'm trying to stick within, say heavy metal, for example, it's something where a lot of the great stuff comes after the 1980s, with the 70s having a core group of bands and stuff like that. But it's a lot of names that people do know. I don't know. All that I've ever tried to really encourage on this channel is to always try to explore new music, whether it be within the heavy metal universe, or I've even talked about some indie, some rap, some pop, a little bit of everything on this channel. Heavy metal might be the 90% that we talk about here in Cover Killer Nation, and that's certainly something that takes up probably the majority of the time and is the majority of the focus, considering that's a majority of what I love. However, I do have loves of other varieties whenever it comes to music, and I feel that a lot of individuals definitely should cater and explore those as well. It's something where you need to actually step outside your comfort zone every so often in order to determine something, that you like something that you perhaps would have never found out about if had you not done that. So in a way, Corey, you have a really good point there, but it's definitely not that's universally true. So a blanket statement like that sometimes can really get you into trouble, and I feel like this is one that will get you a little bit of flack. Well, aside from that, all that I can say is that you've probably seen a couple of links that have been lingering around me, and I definitely encourage you as music fans to check them out. The Cattle Decapitation video is for an album that is brand new. It's one that just came out, and they're a band that's been around since the early 2000s. The video about pop music is a couple of years old, but it kind of addresses a couple of the problems that the pop industry does have. And anything else that you see around here is certainly relevant and showcases a little bit of a diversity of the channel. So jump right in, and jump right into music as well. I'm Cover Killer Nation, and I'm out of here.